That was I probably told you the story already, but I used to work with a guy from the UK. Lived in London, moved over here, and he worked at IFR. He was the manager over the production floor. And one time he called me out. He had a problem with his computer, and I went out there and he was doing something weird. And I said, "Well, let me reset it." And I reset it, and and then it was working. And then I said, "I fixed it." And he said, "No, you didn't." He said, "It's going to break next week. All you did is reboot it, so you haven't fixed any issue." And he was right, but that's just the nature of Windows. It just doesn't handle memory like it should. Doesn't handle resources. You think by Windows 10 they'd have it correct, but in theory, if I were to write an operating system, if you ran Blender, I'd say, okay, you can have this memory space to this memory space for Blender. I got to have other memory spaces for the other programs. When Blender shuts down, however it shuts down, the Windows should automatically go out there and say, okay, Blender's gone. I'm going to reclaim this memory and reuse it. It shouldn't rely on the program sending it back to Windows saying, okay, you can have this back now. It should be Windows controlling it like that. But anyway, I'd say if I were to write it, but I couldn't do any better of a job. I could sit there and criticize Microsoft, but there's a lot going on in your computer you don't even realize. I've showed you guys Task Manager before, haven't I? Yeah. And if I go to Task Manager here, you'll see on my computer I got a lot of items that are running controllers, um, audio, virus checking. Um, these are all things that are running, the ones that say running. So all these service hosts are running and doing different things. They may be monitoring ports, they may be doing this or that. Well, let's say you have 500 things that are running on your computer, whether they're services or programs or whatever. Do you think it'd be difficult to write a program to manage the resources of those 500 programs? That'd be a challenge, wouldn't it? So I'm actually surprised that Windows works as well as it does. Okay. I think I shared the sound. Okay, still that. If you don't hear it, then let me know. Okay, now this is talking about importing 2D sprites and pixel art, but this gets into sprite sheets. And sprite sheets is where you got similar pictures, but it's changing slightly. Um, you can create your own sprite sheets. If you got some of the Adobe products, they have tools built in to create sprite sheets. I don't think Paint.net would do it, but we'll talk more about that when we um, take a look at sprite sheets. Okay, so let's take a look at that piece. Now I'm gonna go try to find a sprite sheet, and then I'll show you how you might create one with paint.net. Probably not effectively, but okay, I just Googled sprite sheet, and is that Donald Trump? uh, that's funny. On the first page is people creating games with Donald Trump, I guess. Um, okay, so here's a looks like a sprite sheet. I'm hoping that the little gray squares here means that's actually a transparency. That'd work out really nice. But I'm gonna right click on that, choose copy image. Then I'm going to paint.net. Let's just take a look at it. So paint.net, I'll do an edit, paste in a new image. You just click my mouse wheel, hold it down, and move it around. I'm doing a control mouse wheel to zoom in. And this is what a sprite sheet looks like. You got a one picture here, and the next one just changes slightly. And a little bit more, a little bit more, and then it's like a flip book where you flip through it. The animation appears like it's doing something. Now all I can see here is the head's moving, but maybe the legs are moving too. I don't know. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and save this. This actually does look like transparency, which means that I can have a background. Okay, so the file save. PNG is fine. Not my desktop though. I'm saving under my pictures. Then sprite sheet.png. So then I come over to Unity, I right click down here and choose import new asset. Go to my pictures. And I got my sprite sheet here. Okay, so if you got your sprite sheet selected down here, what he's talking about is this sprite mode down here. You can choose multiple. And then the sprite editor button, if you click that and click apply, it'll bring up this tool right here. And this is where we'll tell where one sprite ends, and another one begins. And I really think it's easier if they're the same width, which this is. By being the same width and having a character in the same position within that rectangle we're going to draw, then your character won't like be shifting over. It'll just be like when you see a change of the head moving, you just see the head moving, the body will remain exactly where it's at. Now, sometimes it's easy to tell from your picture, um, what I have. Sometimes not, but I think this would work. If I do my image size, probably resize. Its width is 416, and the height is 256. There's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13 there. So 13 across, 13 columns. Now going down, that's weird that that's off like that. But going down, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I have 8 down, which corresponds to 8 columns. We bring up Excel. So if I got 416 pixels and I got 13 across, if I do 416 divided by 13, ooh, that looks good. That would imply my width is 32, hopefully. Now my height is 256, so I do 256 divided by 8, 32. That almost implies that I'm going to have a square 32 by 32, and that's how I'll split that up. That makes sense on what I just did there? Or is there any questions on what I just did? I should ask that. Okay. Yeah, and that's why it works out so nice that they're even like that. It's the uneven ones that are a challenge. So yeah, I just took the total number of pixels across and divide by how many squares or rectangles I think are there. And that's based upon how many characters. And then I took the total pixels going down, the height, and divided by how many rows there were, and that gives me that size. Okay, so now if I were to go back here, and he's talking about the slice, and you see you got your automatic, but there's also by cell size. So 32, oops, try it again, 32, 32. So like over here, um, Got 32 by 32, click slice. Okay, I clicked it. Now if I see it click each one of these, it looks pretty perfect, doesn't it? The distance from this edge to my character looks the same in all of them, as good as I can see. And now those are sliced. Sprite sheets oftentimes, let me get back to that, escape there. Oftentimes you'll see a name on them. They'll put the size on there. Of course, I haven't said that. I'm not sure if I see any that way. How about that one? Does that look pretty good in terms of a sprite sheet? It does. It looks perfect. This would be easy to work with. This one, I would guess, probably wouldn't be good. But maybe I'm looking at it wrong. This width here looks different than this width here. And it's not meant to show like a smooth transition in your animation. You look at this height of this bottom girl down here, that looks different than the height of the one up here. This is a very clever animation, but it's harder to slice this. Here, the width of this character right here is different than the width of these over here. Now, these aren't necessarily the same animation, if you notice. I'm thinking they're not. I can't see that well enough. Let me see. Open an image, new tab. I right-clicked on it so I can open it here. How do I screw it? Oh, I lie. That is him pulling his sword out. So this would be more of a challenge to slice this, because you got this right here, which is a different width than this one with the sword all the way out. And you can do the slicing, but when you animate it, this character is pulling his sword out. You don't want it to shift over, so many pixels and appear like it's off. And there are special editors that create these. And so if you're good at art, you can go into those editors, and they make it a lot easier to work with those. I'll show you a very primitive way here shortly. Anyway. Okay, you didn't really talk about it, but let me talk about it. You select these individual ones here, like that. And down here, you see the position. So this has 352 and 224 for the X and Y. I can change that to 353. So you can manually adjust these. So they're not hard coded such that after you've done the slice, you can't change that. And let's see, I think apply, and then close that out like that. Now, when I expand this, you now see it shows you all these different images. And that is strange. My original sprite sheet I didn't think that the Unity would be as smart. I fully expected there to be a lot of blank squares here. You see all this blank area over here? But do you see any blank areas here? Let's make it smaller. No. So somehow it recognized that those did not have any pixels on them at all, and it just cut it out of the sprite sheet, which is excellent. I just didn't really think it'd be that smart. Is that good so far on how to cut out how to split up a sprite sheet? Now let me grab another one and show how you'd work with it. Okay, so I'm going to save this one, and pictures, and I don't know what this is, but whatever. GIF. I don't think it'll work on that, but let me go ahead and save it that way. But Unity might surprise me. They're constantly coming out with new versions. So, import new asset. But whatever. I'm going to change it to multiple. Choose sprite editor. Apply. I guess it does. Doesn't care. Now this one is not transparent, which means that I would not be able to see through it to the background behind, perhaps. Okay, so if I go to slice, let's see what automatic does. So click slice. I think I clicked it. Automatic. Okay, that time I definitely clicked it. Pretty poor job it did, didn't it? I'm going to revert back so I can start over. Okay, go to sprite editor for that. Come here. Now see here as by cell count. As you look at this, you have to think how many cell counts going across. Like how many images do I have in this row? Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So I got 22 columns. Problem with that is I may not have 22 columns in all the rows. And then number of rows. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then I click slice. Is it even close? It's nowhere even close, is it? Now notice I can manually change these, and I can zoom in. I don't have to like hurt my eyes or something like that. So there's different ways you can do this, and that's where that foot ends. This one Looks like it bleeds over a little bit even. Yeah, 1 pixel over there and 1 pixel over here. So there's no way I can really slice this. Is this a very good sprite editor that created this in the first place? It isn't, because there's no way you can really grab that. You're going to lose a pixel one way or the other, or get an extra pixel on there. But those are the different ways. The best way is to find a sprite sheet that is even, like I did in the first time. And that's what I was looking for, because I knew it would take me forever to actually define a sprite sheet if I didn't. And I'm not really into game art, so I couldn't tell you a lot of details about that. But I usually blow by it when it saves it. I'm assuming it's here somewhere. Maybe not. He was looking at pixels per inch, wasn't he? There it is. So this one is 96 pixels per inch. So I just had to find out where it's located at. So that's what he's talking about. That should match. That was probably about the best video I found on slicing it up. He didn't talk about the offset. Um, let me think how to describe the offset. My left side here was flush with the square was flush with this left side, but it could be you have it offset in so many pixels. Now, I don't know if I could actually change that here. Image, is it no, canvas size? Okay, I have that there, and so I don't have that checked, so that's good. Well, let's change that to something big. 800. See how this has an offset here at the beginning, and some of them maybe have an offset on each of the characters. So you'll see all kinds of different ways they do sprite sheets. So here you import that dummy of the sprite sheet, that asset. Whatever. Okay. And multiple sprite editor. You do the slice and so forth. See how there's an offset in the padding. So if things aren't perfectly like the one I chose were, then you can play with the offset and padding to get it to do different things. For example, if I want this to be 32 by 32 again, and if I click slice, then you got 32 by 32. Let me zoom in. Oops, I didn't mean to move that. Control Z. It's interesting when you hold down control, and I don't remember doing that before. You hold down control, it shows you what it's been cut as. It's kind of nice. But instead of that, let me put a offset of 10. Now, if I hold on my control, see how it's been shifted in 10 pixels? If I do my Y as 20, then click slice. Now, if I hold on my control, well, do slice. Oh, yeah, that's there. You see it's been offset from the top. You can also do the padding. And I believe the padding is within each cell. So, like, let's say there's 10 pixels at the beginning of each of the cells. And let me change this offset here back to 0. That's back to 0. Then click slice. Now, if I do my control, you see how each one of the squares is still 20, but there's a padding inside, so then each one is like 10. Wait a minute. What was my 32? 32 minus 10 is 22. Okay. So does that make sense on what the padding does? Now, beyond that, I haven't played with these other settings. Pivot, not clue. Pivot Unimode, no clue. Those are the only ones I ever played with the sprite editor. Okay, so that's enough of that video, and I'll put this link out here so you can refer to it. Worst part about books is with new versions, books are constantly outdated. So usually YouTube videos give the newest because there's a lot easier to create a YouTube video than it is to write a book. Okay, so get rid of whatever point, and then the compression. They tell us to use none. Um, Now, the reason why they have these, if you're saying, well, why isn't it just default to that, is because why do you think that would be? Why do you need high quality, low quality, normal quality, and so forth? Takes up more memory. So if you had no compression at all, it's going to look good, but it'll consume more memory. If you got enough resources, then it might consume enough memory to where it's actually make the game run a lot slower on some machines if you're developing a PC game. But we'll go with a none. And I think we have to apply. Does that make sense? What that let me go back there. What that vector 3 horizontal is doing? Okay. Again, this has nothing to do with what's on the game. This is something you're defining, so then you can use that to adjust this. And he'll change this. I'm guessing. Um, I haven't actually recreated this myself. I just watched it, but I'm expecting he'll put an if statement here of some sort for the key code being pushed. Now, one thing to note there is we did a little bit different, but you don't have to have it in the animator folder. He's just saying to really organize things so you know exactly where your animations are, create an animations folder. To know where your graphics are, create a graphics folder. They don't have to be in folders, but again, if you get too many assets, resources in one place, it's really hard to figure out, keep track of everything. So again, what you're doing is you're dropping, um, like this right here. You can hold down your shift key and you can drop that in the animation you create on it. Now here, if you right click on this, you see there's a create, then there's an animation. And let's see, what do I want to call it? Run. And if I go back to this right here, um, the this right here doesn't by default have the animation on there. So you can tie those two together. He did it a little bit different. Yeah, I didn't show that, but anyway, if you create them separate like this, if you have your sprite sheet up here, um, and then new animation, whatever. So we got our character there. See how I created the animator over here, and for the animation, you can drag and drop that into here if there wasn't already one there. Controller. There's my controller. Okay. That controller is this part right here, and that's that right there. What did it do here? It added all of ours, didn't it? So you come there, you could delete them, and then you could drag. Um, it's like if I had that, well, should be able to drag them on there. Let me do his steps. Follow that instead of doing that. So I'm going to delete this. Should be able to drag it at any time, but okay. So he has that character on there, and with a name. Okay, that's what I thought I had done. I got my animator here. Spreadsheet 0. Okay, so that's that. I must be missing something. I should be able to drag those up there. Yeah, one more time. Back up. I didn't do that. Okay, so select select our sprite sheet there. Animation. Click create. Let's get his name as any. Got that. Now you can drag him up there. Okay, what's the difference then? I had an boy, that one's got me bested. Because I had an animation before. Oh, yeah, I know what difference is. Down here, I created the animation based upon the asset, not on the game object. So it has to be on the game object. Like here, if I come here, there's probably there may not be anything there. But if you have that, if they have game object selected and come up here and create your animation. So why wouldn't it work down here though? That's curious. Hmm. Anyway, you have to choose a game object to do it. But it seems like me, you want to have an asset down here that you could go ahead and create the animations on. And so when you drop the asset, but that's not the way it works. Now you can um, let me start over because I don't know what I've done. Delete that. Delete this. Delete that. Okay, so I have this selected and choose my window, animation, animation. Click create. Okay. And take those, drag and drop them up here. And see how his head's moving? What he doesn't mention is that each one of these, corresponds to that different picture. You can move this so it's out there. If you expand this, then you see the different images there. The part's so small you can't see it. If I have this one selected, I think you should be able to move it. Yeah, okay. Control Z. So you can rearrange them. Probably don't need to do that, but each one of them is a separate image. Another way you can do that is you can use booleans, but his way is more based upon a number. Remember how when we did first movement, we had we multiplied it times a positive one and went right, multiplied it by a negative one and went left. Well, that's what he's talking about doing here. And it doesn't look like he's even checking the key codes here. He's letting the animator check that. And remember that over here. We got our animator, which should be a link down here. Here's our new animation, and this is where you can create a state between them. So you right click. Actually, first you probably choose the parameters, and you add a parameter. Boolean or float or whatever. He did a float. And this might indicate your direction. And then you create a state, make transition. And I probably can't point to any of these, maybe. No. Guess I can point it to exit. And remember that when you click here, this is where you do your conditions, and you say where your direction is equal to -1 or something like that. And then what you'll do is in your code is you'll set this direction value. And I guess you would have to do something in your code didn't tell whether it's -1 or +1, assuming that's where he's headed with that. Actually, even though his accent, it's entertaining at times, but kind of fun to listen to. It's actually a really good video showing how to do the different states like that with your sprite sheet. Some of them are longer; they're like 30-minute videos. Is there any questions on that? Just to really emphasize one thing that they're talking about. Okay, add component here. Move that. Move it. And although you could do this through code, um, he just dragged and dropped it. Up here, when he did a public class, and he said public, I don't remember if it's uppercase or not, animator, on him, and save that. Okay. So if I got my main character here, it's got its own animator, but by default, when you do that, it doesn't make the association. So this animator is looking here at in the script has not been connected to the actually animator that's here. Um, Now I think you can click this little circle here, and I think it'll pop up. Maybe not. Oh wait, I'm choosing the wrong one. Then you can click there and choose it, or you can click down here and drag and drop this. Right place. Except that's not the animator. Okay, let's try this. That's interesting. Which one is it then? Well, I swore he dragged and dropped it. But anyway, you can come here and choose it, and that'll fill that in. Sprite sheet 0. That's sprite sheet 0. Why couldn't I have dragged and dropped that? Okay. None. That is bizarre. But anyway, I guess you can open up the window and double click it that way. In his video, when you drag and drop it, you should be able to do that. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong right there. But that's the animator. But anyway, does that make sense how to make the connection between those two? Well, the project I'm put out there is I want you to go grab a sprite sheet, not the one we just did, but just grab a sprite sheet and create some animations. If it's a sprite sheet where the person's running, then you can do a run similar to what he did. If it's a sprite sheet where the person's just raising their arms, then you would raise their arms. So I can't be real specific on that. It's just kind of whatever you choose. Don't choose ones that are uneven, but this would be an animation for drawing a sword, I guess. And I have no clue what this is. Getting stabbed, maybe? I don't know. This is probably, I don't think the person's running. Yeah. I have no clue what that person's doing. This is a run animation. This looks like it's running toward you, away from you, to the left, to the right. So here you could create four animations out of that. If you choose a fire, like an explosion, you're obviously not running, but it's changing different states of the explosion. Does that make sense of what I'm looking for there? Well, I'll go ahead and stop the recording there, and you got the rest of time work on it. There was only 7 minutes. And let me go create the drop boxes. Oh, and I do want you to turn it in differently, so I need to show that. Okay, so I got my game. Mine's pretty boring since it does nothing. Um, but for run it, character's not moving. Let me make that character bigger. Just so we have something to look at. There, perfect. Okay, so if I come over here to the file and build settings, it automatically has a sample scene in here. We got our PC, Mac, and Linux standalone that shows there. We got Windows, and then 64-bit. And you see there's a build and run. And now when this runs, since I probably got it full screen, I don't remember if I said anything. Lights going off. These lights aren't even recognizing me. Oh no, I think it comes up and asks you. But you might not be able to see that on your side. Can you see that at all? Oh, okay. I wonder why that didn't come up and ask me. Okay, but I'll close that. And player settings, that's where it's at. I bet in here somewhere I could have told it don't do full screen. But I'll research that and find out where that's at for next time. Now if I go, I put that under my picture so I can easily find it. Got this test folder. You notice over here that I have a bunch of different files, specifically this exe right here. If I double click that, it will run my game. What I want you to do is this folder that you create, I want you to zip that up, and that's what I'll have you turn in. So right here, I'd right click on it and choose send to compressed zip folder. Does that make sense? The way I want you to turn in? Okay. Key question is how in the world do you get that to stop? I can bring up the task manager, but there's a keystroke for ending that. Control Alt Delete. I can do a task manager and kill it, but viewer details. Here's the exe, so I end that. Default Unity keystroke to end game. There's a way to run it in windowed mode too, so that's why I'm not sure. Previous version used to come up and ask you which way do you want to run it, but now they probably changed that, so I'll find that out. But to kill it, you just can do Control Alt Delete. You can see the one that's running, so that'll get you through for this time. But anyway, I'll go ahead and stop the video there.